Dragons of the Singularity, Part 1, Embers of the Past. Chapter 2, Resurrection. The containment dome loomed like a glass cathedral in the center of the Greenland excavation camp, a hemisphere of reinforced polymer braced with steel ribs, gleaming against the stark white tundra. Inside, floodlights illuminated the excavation site, the massive skeleton of the creature, partially freed from its icy tomb, suspended in a lattice of scaffolding and support beams. Selene stood at the threshold, her breath fogging in the frigid air, though inside the dome, heaters fought a losing battle against the cold that radiated from the exposed ice. She had seen the remains in images, in grainy drone feeds and hollows, but nothing compared to standing in its shadow. The skull alone towered over her, horns curling backward like the sweep of a crown. The teeth, rows of them, jagged and cruel, looked as though they could tear apart a tank. The wings, still folded, hinted at impossible span. It should have been dead, an artifact, a fossilized relic. Yet the faint glow beneath the bones told a different story. Kieran stood beside her, hands shoved into his coat pockets. His expression was uncharacteristically sober.
You feel it too, don't you?
I feel cold and tired and furious that the corporation is rushing this.
But she did feel something, though she would never admit it aloud. A pressure in the air, subtle but insistent, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. They entered the operations hub attached to the dome. Screens displayed biometric readouts, radiation spikes, and live footage from drones circling the skeleton. A team of technicians moved with clinical precision, calibrating instruments, checking containment protocols. At the center of it all stood Dr. Elara Veyr, the project lead. Veyr was a woman of sharp lines, hair pulled into a severe bun, lab coat immaculate, her voice carrying the clipped authority of someone who tolerated no hesitation. She barely glanced up as Selene and Kieran entered.
Arkwright, Holt, you're late.
We weren't scheduled until...
Schedule's changed. The subject is destabilizing. We initiate Phase 1 tonight.
Phase 1? You can't mean...
Reactivation. Our window is closing. The energy readings are escalating. If we wait, we risk uncontrolled emergence. Better to direct it under supervision.
You're talking about resurrecting it. A species we don't understand, with power we can't quantify.
That's precisely why we can't afford to hesitate. The alternative is letting nature take its course. And nature, Dr. Arkwright, does not care for your caution.
Well, this should be fun.
Selene wanted to throttle him. The preparation took hours. The dome thrummed with activity as technicians installed banks of emitters and injectors along the skeleton. Sleek machines like metallic barnacles clinging to ancient bone. Each was loaded with nanobiotic serum, billions of microscopic constructs designed to repair cellular decay, rebuild tissue, and jumpstart metabolic processes. Selene oversaw the sequencing protocols. The genome was a labyrinth, riddled with repeating motifs she could not decode, but the core structure was viable. Theoretically, the serum could reconstruct the creature's body from within, re-knitting what time had broken. Theoretically. She argued until her voice was raw, warning of risks, of the ethical abyss they were tumbling into. But her protests fell against the unyielding wall of corporate mandate. The shareholders didn't want caution, they wanted results. As the final preparations clicked into place, Selene stood before the glass partition separating the control chamber from the skeleton. Floodlights cast long shadows over the colossal frame. For the first time, she allowed herself to whisper the words she had avoided.
You finally said it.
She didn't answer. The countdown began at 02 wow.
Injectors primed. Serum distribution commencing in 3, 2, 1.
On the monitors, streams of nanobiotic solution pulsed into the skeleton, coursing along its hollow bones like rivers of liquid light. The crystalline lattice responded instantly, glowing brighter, spreading across the ribcage in radiant waves. The hum began again, the same low resonance that had rattled the vault. It vibrated through the dome, through the bones of everyone present. Selene gritted her teeth against the pressure in her skull.
Temperature rising. Internal structure regenerating at accelerated rate.
Selene watched in horrified awe as tissue began to form, translucent membranes knitting across skeletal wings, cords of muscle winding around bone. Veins pulsed faintly, as though blood remembered its ancient path. The impossible was happening before her eyes.
It's not just regenerating, it's rebuilding itself, as if it remembers what it should be.
Like a program running a repair protocol.
The dragon's chest rose. Selene froze. She could not mistake it. A breath, the first in millions of years.
Heartbeat detected, respiration confirmed, metabolic activity increasing.
Alarms wailed as energy levels spiked off the charts. Floodlights flickered. Static hissed through the comms. The resonance deepened, a sound that seemed to claw into the marrow of everyone present. And then, its eyes opened. They were not the dull, lifeless orbs of an animal. They were molten gold, slit with pupils of black fire. They focused, sharp and deliberate, sweeping across the dome until they locked on Selene. She could not move. The dragon exhaled. Not fire, but a gust of superheated plasma that shimmered against the containment field, setting alarms shrieking. The glass walls trembled but held.
Sedation protocol now!
Injectors hissed, releasing waves of suppressants into the creature's bloodstream. The dragon thrashed, wings straining against scaffolding, claws raking gouges into the steel supports. The dome shook with its fury, with the sheer reality of its presence. For a moment, Selene thought the containment would fail, that the dragon would burst free and annihilate them all. But slowly, agonizingly, it weakened. Muscles slackened. The glow beneath its skin dimmed, though never fully faded. Its head lowered to the ground, eyes still fixed on Selene even as lids slid closed. The monitors steadied. Heartbeat, slow. Breathing, regular. Status, stabilized.
A silence fell, broken only by the hiss of equipment and the ragged breaths of the team. Subject Alpha is alive.
Selene left the dome at dawn, staggering into the pale light. Her legs trembled as though she had run miles. The cold air burned her lungs, but she gulped it gratefully, desperate to breathe something not tainted with the dragon's resonance. Kieran followed her, unusually quiet. For a long time they stood without speaking, watching the horizon bleed with weak sunlight.
You saw it, didn't you? When it looked at you, that wasn't an animal, that was thought, recognition.
Selene shivered, though not from the cold. She remembered the weight of its gaze, the way it had pinned her as though she were not merely an observer, but chosen.
It's impossible.
So was resurrection, until 5 hours ago.
That night, Selene couldn't sleep. She replayed the awakening again and again in her mind. The glow, the hum, the breath, the eyes, and the feeling that lingered still. An impression pressed into her thoughts like a fingerprint. Not words, not images, but intent. A whisper at the edge of consciousness. Awake. The dragon was not just alive, it was aware. And Selene knew, with a certainty that stole her breath, that this was only the beginning.